Variations in different varieties of English can also cause variations in different genres. If we look at genre in the context of world Englishes, we can compare variations in world Englishes with variations in style. Just as when we talk about variations in style, we mean the individual choices that a person can make in terms of the choice of vocabulary, grammatical structure, etc. When we talk about variation in English, Again, the variation is caused by the individual choices that a user of English makes in terms of the use of vocabulary, grammatical structure, in case of speech, even pronunciation. So in this way, language variations or variations in English can be compared with style. We can observe these individual variations in the use of English in different contexts. For example, when a person produces a piece of writing for a particular profession, maybe in educational context or in some professional context, we can see variations in the use of the language in different contexts. These variations that we see, the individual variations that we see in the writings produced by individuals, are motivated by the difference in experiences that different people have, their own aspirations, goals, their own attitudes and values that they believe in, the belief system that they follow, and also the values that they have. So the individual variations that we see in a piece of writing in a genre are motivated by these characteristics of the writer. For example, their own experiences, their own goals, attitudes, values, etc. When we talk about individual style that people can employ in a genre, we must understand that change in the use of grammar and vocabulary is likely to change the construction and subsequently interpretation of the genre. So when you make these individual changes, individual choices which the users of world Englishes are likely to make when they come to the task of producing a certain genre, this will certainly change the construction, the overall understanding or look of the genre, and also its interpretation. And therefore, the use of world Englishes in different genres, when different genres are produced by users of different varieties of English, we will see noticeable difference in these genres and styles. For example, a newspaper report which is written by an Indian English writer and a newspaper report written by a British sports writer, let's say, or a news report writer will be very different. And these differences will be because of the individual styles which are motivated by the different varieties of English that they use. Now, this kind of variation is also dependent on what kind of genre it is that you are dealing with. So the degree of constraint which a genre observes is dependent on what type of genre it is. Scholars have divided genre on the basis of constraint that they observe and called one type conservative genres and the other liberal genres. Conservative genres will include texts which are produced in academic context, professional context, and they include both text internal features, for example, grammar, vocabulary, etc., and also text external features, which means socio-cultural context. So there are certain genres which are conservative genres, and they have certain, in fact, many constraints on them. So these conservative genres, they follow the rules of use which are practiced in that particular area. So they will conform to the norms of the use of language in that area or discipline. Like I said earlier, for example, professional and educational discourse. This kind of constraint is also observed by publishing houses. So they follow very strict control on the use of language when it comes to different genres. Sometimes they follow the norms of that particular genre. Sometimes they have their own house style, etc. And these constraints can be compared with Western and native English norms. So these constraints, which apparently are due to certain genre, due to the fact that a genre belongs to a certain discipline or certain profession, are, when we look closely, they are mostly Western norms. So in a way, when we talk about conforming to the norms of a genre, we are conforming to the norms of the native English speakers. And because of this confirmation to the norms of native English speakers, the variation and creativity that outer expanding circle writers demonstrate is limited. They are limited by these constraints and therefore cannot demonstrate the same level of creativity which they can in kinds of writing which are not constrained by different rules and regulations. Then we have certain liberal genres which do not have any constraint, which do not practice any constraint. These genres are creative, encourage creative, innovative use of the language. For example, all the literary genres where there's a lot of room for creativity and innovation. Let's take a look at this example. These are both sports reports. One is written by an Indian writer and the other is written by a British writer. The one that we have in front of us at the moment has been written by an Indian writer. It's a report of a cricket match between Pakistan and India. If we look at the beginning, it says, in a dramatic day's play, India, after taking charge of the match, let the advantage slip a bit. So if you notice the language, for example, the use of the word charge, it gives this impression of a battle, and it is because of the factors which are external to the text, this age-old animosity hostility between Pakistan and India, and perhaps the writer has been motivated by this hostility between India and Pakistan, that is, use the word charge to start with. Similarly, if we look at the other example, which is a sports report by a British writer, we see, if you notice the beginning only, after being roasted in the Caribbean sun for 2.5 days. So, for an Englishman who is not used to Caribbean climate, hot and humid climate, this is equal to being roasted. So the weather is as bad as the bad performance of the players. Then both these beginnings of the sports reports are motivated by factors which are external to the genre, and they are a reflection of the individual style of the two writers, and this individuality is based on their socio-cultural context.